Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Victoria. And I want to wish everybody a happy Easter today. What a gorgeous day here in Victoria. Seeing the sun shining everywhere. Just couldn't be a more perfect day to celebrate Easter. And I'm happy to see your smiling faces here this morning. Uh, Sorry that we can't all be together on this day as we had hoped we might be, but we're just knowing that that's going to happen one day soon. This isn't going to go on forever. So I'd like to open this morning by inviting Reverend Joanna to do a special reading for us this morning, something a bit different from an opening prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Rather than doing our traditional opening treatment this morning, I'm going to read our Declaration of Principles, What We Believe, that was written by Dr. Ernest Holmes and remains something that we remind ourselves of 2 or 3 times a year in our services. And Easter's a lovely time to remember what we believe. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. We believe that heaven is within us, and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. We believe in the healing of the sick through the power of this mind. We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that the life of all is God. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. It's always a lovely reminder to listen to the declarations of principles once in a while for us to really, really remember what it is that this teaching is all about. So I appreciate that this morning. And now I'd really like to invite the wonderful Darlene Haynes to give us a gift of song on this Easter morning. She has a very special song for us this morning that just fits right in. And I know that you'll enjoy it every bit as much as I'm about to. So Darlene?
Thank you, Carrie. This song is written by Karen Drucker and Claudia Carawan, and it is called I Am Open. And I thought it was very appropriate for Easter time as we look at new beginnings and letting go of the old. I am open to the possibility. I am open to the possibility of a life that is lived to be lived by me. I don't have all the answers now, but I'm willing to take it slow. I believe that something is calling me where the path will lead. I don't know, but I am open to the possibility. I am open to the possibility of a life that is meant to be lived by me. There's an open road as far as I can see, and my heart will lead the way. Step by step through the mystery, I surrender every day. But I am open. I am open. I am open.
Thank you, darling. Um, beautiful, beautiful song for Easter morning, and a wonderful song that is related to my talk today. Open to the possibilities, because it's something that comes up every Easter for me as I'm preparing an Easter talk. And as I was thinking about it this week, and as I, typically do, I was thinking, what does Easter mean to you? What does it mean to the people in our congregation? Um, do we still have a belief in the Christian tradition that Jesus was crucified and on Good Friday, um, and rose from the dead, was resurrected on Sunday? Do we believe that? Or do we believe in New Thought metaphysical interpretations of the story? Um, do we believe in Jesus? Were some of us never exposed to Jesus or to the teachings of Jesus? Are we interested in them? Or do we have some fear around it, some discomfort around it? I know that quite a few people that I have known who have been part of the New Thought tradition have had some discomfort around the word Jesus, the name Jesus, the teachings of Jesus. And yet Ernest Holmes, talked about Jesus all the time. Our textbook is filled with the teachings of Jesus. It's just that they are interpreted in a slightly different way, and sometimes in a dramatically different way from the traditional Christian belief system. And so, as I was pondering this week, so a couple of things came to me, as they tend to do. And one of them is a poem that was written by Ernest Holmes and his brother Fenwick, just actually close to the end of Ernest Holmes' life. It was the last book that he wrote, and he wrote it with his brother, and it is called The Voice Celestial. And I want to share that poem with you this morning because it's so appropriate for Easter. It needs no more of telling, save that he passed the shore of earthly life. His words, a last command, bear witness to the truth in every land that I have raised from the dead, and I have given proof that only bodies die. Fear not, all ye who hear, you will survive. You'll survive that which has seemed to die, but is still alive. Thus did the Christ fulfill for all the ages the promise of the passion plays and sages, that one should come to play the final rule and prove to man survival of the soul. That one should come to play the final role and prove to man survival of the soul. And so that's the great message of the Easter story. And it is certainly a great message in religious science, where we absolutely know that, uh, as Ernest Holmes said, there's no beginning of life, and there's no end. We just kind of transform from being in spirit form to coming into human form as spirit, and then unzipping the physical garment and stepping out of it again. And this is consistent with the story. So today I want to talk about Jesus, and I thought, what is it that I'm going to say? And so I thought, well, do what you do all the time. Google, use Google Jesus. And the title of my talk today is Googling Jesus. And it was quite an experience. And really, it was a week-long event because there is an endless number of stories about Jesus, an endless number of interpretations of who the man was and of what he did with his life. And, everything from him being the Messiah to being a master teacher to being a cool dude. It's quite interesting if you want to check it out. And some of the stories are really quite profound. Um, the, the traditional story, of course, is that on Good Friday, Jesus was crucified. And I always wondered, and one of my daughters used to always say to me, why is it called Good Friday? How could it be called Good Friday if Jesus was crucified on that day when such a horrible thing could happen? And it turns out that the word good at one point actually meant holy. And so Good Friday would have been called Holy Friday centuries ago. And so that gives greater meaning to that day, I think. So on Holy Friday, Jesus was crucified, and this is really shortening the story a lot. And then, of course, on Easter Sunday, his mother Mary and Mary Magdalene went to the tomb, where his body had been laid, and there had been a stone that had been rolled across the mouth of the cave. And they went, excuse me, they went to administer herbs and oils to his body, a kind of embalming during that time. But when they arrived, they were shocked to see that the stone was rolled away, and there was no sign of Jesus in the tomb. And what happened, again, shortening the story, is that Jesus had resurrected. Jesus had come back in human form and was on earth for 40 days to teach the disciples so that they could go out and have their own ministries, could preach the gospel to the world. So that's the short version of the traditional story. But some of the other stories are really quite fascinating too. There's a story that Jesus actually was taken down from the cross before he died, and that he lived, and that he went on to teach, and that he went throughout Eastern Europe teaching for many, many years to come. There's the story that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene, and that they had children, and that the bloodline lives on today. And Dan Brown wrote the book, The Da Vinci Code, which really was based upon that premise, and it was a thriller and a really interesting story, an intriguing story. And so I was thinking about all of those kinds of things, but also I remembered reading several years ago that there is a Christian church in Kerala in India. Now, there are about 20 million Christians in India, which surprised me. But and they're Catholic churches, but there's an independent church in the city of Kerala. And in that church, the the service is conducted in Aramaic, and Aramaic was the language of Jesus. And I thought how interesting that is, because one of the stories is that Jesus went to India at some point and was teaching in India. And so to have a Christian church in Kerala where the services are still conducted in Aramaic, to me is really fascinating and tells me something about what Jesus did, and where he preached and where he went. There are also stories that he revealed himself to Native Americans in North America. And I haven't heard a lot about those, but I have heard stories that he did that. And so there are all of these stories that can create some confusion. And actually, Mary Magdalene, one of the stories, or several of the stories, say that she was actually the most beloved disciple of Jesus. And the Gnostic Gospels, which have come out, which are the translation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, in some fragments of the papyrus scrolls that have been found, there is reference made to Jesus and his wife, the Magdalene, and that they had children, and that the speculation is that they had 2 children. Now, there's a tomb in France um, that is dedicated to Mary Magdalene, and it is said that the remains of Mary Magdalene are there, that she went on to preach the gospel into France, and that's where she died. So there are all of these really interesting and intriguing stories, and there are many things there that we can ask ourselves about and say, is this true? What does this mean to me? What are the possibilities here? And that's why I say that song you sang this morning, Darlene, is so perfect. Are we open to the possibilities, or do we just discard them? Has Christianity wounded us so much, or wounded some of us so much, that we just discard it? We turn our backs on it. We don't want to hear about it. There's something about it that angers us, that or perhaps there's fear around it. There's fear of the damage that can be done. There's a distaste for some of the things that have been done by people who call themselves Christians. And so I'm asking today that we just give up the judgment and ask ourselves what we really do believe. Dr. Holmes said that we need only ask ourselves the truth, and the answers are there. That if when we go within ourselves, we will know the truth. Now, it's not a matter of just saying, I wonder if this is true, and then carrying on with it. This is something that we have to contemplate. This is where if we just look at it in a rather rapid way, we find that our brains will get into conflict with our hearts. There'll be this contradiction that will be going on. And so what we really need to do is to go into that heart space and to really sit with it and to ask ourselves the questions and to see what it is that we ourselves believe. And so something else that came to me this week, as I said, there were 2 things. One was the poem by Dr. Holmes and by his brother Fenwick, but the other was a book, The 7 Living Words, which is written by Reverend Mark Anthony Lord. Mark is a religious science minister, and he started out studying with Unity, and then he went to the Holmes Institute, and he's a very prominent minister in the New Thought faith and in science of mind. And this book, The 7 Living Words, are really about the last words of Christ. Now, there weren't just 7 individual words. When he's talking about the 7 living words, he's talking about the sentences that Jesus is said to have spoken when he was on the cross and as he was dying. And the interesting thing about it is it doesn't really matter what we believe, because those 7 living words basically are a blueprint for life. If we follow those words, if we contemplate those words, we come across within ourselves a belief system that will take us to the highest and best we can be in our lives. And Mark Mark Anthony Lloyd said that he was constantly asked by people if he believed in Jesus. And he said, he would be annoyed and he'd get judgmental about it. And said he would really find it an aggravation. And he kind of was confused about it himself and he didn't know what to say about it. And then all of a sudden one day when somebody asked him the question, he said this, and I'm going to read it to you because I want to interpret it correctly for you. And then one day when asked, something different came out of my mouth. My answer was simply, yes. Oh my God. You have no idea how much Jesus loves me. I cannot even begin to tell you how loved and adored I am by him. You have no clue. Your human heart cannot comprehend the immense, never-ending, constant, and perfect love that Jesus has for me. I just think he's the best. And he thinks the same of me. He thinks that I'm the best too. I smiled when I read that, but I also choked up because I remembered as a 2-year-old that I went around all the time with this deep and profound feeling in my heart that Jesus loved me, that I knew Jesus at that age and that he loved me. And it didn't matter whether anybody else in the world did or not, because he did. And so the teachings of Jesus have always intrigued me. And of course, we come to a place where it's easier to accept the metaphysical interpretations of the Bible, of Jesus, especially of the New Testament. And by that, an example I can give is that with the cross, the metaphysical interpretation isn't that Jesus was crucified on a cross. The cross was that the horizontal line represented humanity or a human being, and the vertical line represented God descending through us. That's a whole different thing from being on the cross, from being crucified. And so we have this great compilation of stories that can go in any one direction. And I think it's important for us to take with us the things that we can believe easily, and then to perhaps ask ourselves the question, be open to the idea about who this man Jesus was. As Ernest Holmes wrote, Jesus was the exception, Jesus was the example, not the exception of who we can be. He was the example. And in unity, the unity teaching is that Jesus was the way shower. He showed us the way to live a life that would take us into divine perfection, that would take us into conscious awareness. And as Jesus, or as Jesus was quoted in the Bible saying, these things ye shall do and more so, meaning that each of us has the kingdom within. Each of us has the Christ within, that Christ within us is there to be awakened. We are born with it. And to the degree that we align ourselves with God, that Christ consciousness becomes awakened and we are able to do the things that Jesus did, perform the miracles. And that perhaps is the most difficult thing for us to remember. And it's also the most difficult thing for us to believe, perhaps, that we could actually raise ourselves up to that level of consciousness where that is possible. But that's what our spiritual mind treatment is all about in religious science. It is about allowing the Christ consciousness that is pouring through us, allowing God coming through us to be a healing power as we speak our word. And so it's more to chew on, as the saying might go, here on this Easter Sunday. And with the Bible and all of its incredible stories, I think that in many cases it works against itself because there are things in it that are just so incomprehensible. And I think, of course, the Christmas story, the virgin birth. We live in a time where people cannot accept that there was a virgin birth. Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that because fundamentalist Christians most often do believe that. But for people who have been involved in science and who have explored the possibility of saying, just don't believe that. And so I think in cases like that it means that people turn their backs on their faith, rather than saying, well, that was a great yarn that somebody wrote. And if you look at the four Gospels, the four original Gospels in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, only two of them ever mention the virgin birth or even reference Jesus' birth. And that's Matthew and Luke. And of course, Luke has the longer story. But the others don't. And speculation is that at a time when the church was in some trouble and had kind of gone underground, that people really needed some kind of a story to bring them back, to give them faith, and that story was written to do that. And of course, it's the speculation is that the earliest book of the New Testament was written about 70 years after Jesus' death. So of course, there are all kinds of opportunities for embellishment with that as well. But it grew into a faith that now counts 2.3 billion people as members of it. Well, that's actually the Catholic faith, and then there are the other Christian denominations. So it's huge on this planet, and I kind of liked what Mark said. I don't mean the Gospel of Mark. I mean what Mark Anthony Lloyd said. And he said, I don't really care whether you believe it or not. I don't really care whether anybody believes it or not. The truth is in my own heart, and that's all that matters. And he said, I will have no judgment of any kind over people who disbelieve. And I share that. I have no judgment of any kind over people who disbelieve. Because we are all called to know our own truth, and our own truth is that which will serve us the best during this lifetime. And so today, on this Easter Sunday, I'm saying, let's crucify our judgment and our negativity. Let's crucify the things that are not true. Who cares? Let's believe the things that represent goodness and truth and power, the power of love. It's so important that we immerse ourselves in that love and that we share that with one another, that we share that with everyone in our lives, because that one word, love, really represents the teachings of Jesus in the most magnificent way. And so the stories of Jesus that are in the Bible, the stories that he told or is reported to have told, are stories that really tell us how to live our lives. They're wonderful examples, and it doesn't matter whether or not they're true stories. In each of those stories, there is a lesson about the way that we can live in a Christ-like way, the way that we can live in higher consciousness, the way that we can treat other people. And if we do that, there can be peace on this earth, because there can be peace within all of us. And if each of us followed the stories, the teachings in those stories, there would be peace on earth. There could be nothing but. And so on this Easter Sunday, let us experience our own resurrection on this day. And let us rise above judgment and fear and hatred and disbelief and sit with the stories and perhaps ask ourselves the question, could this possibly be true? Or how much of it could be true? How much of this can I embrace? How much of this am I willing to be open to? Because as we do, as Mark Anthony Lloyd said, your heart might open so wide that you can barely stand the joy. Wouldn't it be wonderful for us to live in a way that our hearts were so wide open that we could barely stand the joy? And when we're living in that environment of love, giving and receiving love, that's really what we're doing. We're opening up. And so, to me, the greatest lesson of all of this Easter Sunday is that this is a day of surrender. Let us surrender our judgment. Let us let go of fear. Let us let go of negative belief systems. Let us just let all of those things be released from us. Because when we cling to them, when we cling to old ideas that hurt us in some way, when we cling to negative beliefs, when we cling to the idea that people are out to get us or that people have hurt us in some way, When we lack the ability to forgive, we are only creating further pain and suffering in our own lives. And so today, on this sacred, holy day, let us take the stories that Jesus told. Let us cleave them to our own hearts. Let us get ourselves out of our own way. So often we are the obstacles to our own greatest good. Let us have God, let God have its way with us, in us, as us, working through us. Let's roll away the boulders of our minds. I talked about that last year, the stone in front of the tomb metaphysically represents those stones that we have in our own consciousness that block us from our greater good. Let's roll away the stones of our own minds and set ourselves free. That's what this day is all about. I invite you to embrace it. I invite you to embrace the love and know that you are loved and that you are love itself. And so it is. So I bless you on this day. And a reminder that I'm passing the metaphysical and the metaphorical basket right now. We appreciate all that you give to our center. It's what keeps us going. It's what will help us to reopen again when that time comes. And it will assure that our space is there. So bless you all for what you give and for what you do in so many ways for our center. If you would care to donate today, you can do that on our website through PayPal by going to www.cslvictoria.org, or you can do an e-transfer, and that e-transfer should go to donate@cslvictoria.org, and that will go direct into our bank account. So I thank you so much for being with us today. I bless you on this day. I hope you get out into that wonderful sunshine and just drink the glory of God, all of the wonder of God that is there for us today. And now I'd like to invite Reverend Rachel for our closing treatment today. And bless you all.
So I'm asking everybody to go within, and I ask, dear ever-present Spirit that dwells within me and all of us, thank you for guiding us toward the light, to a lightness of being, always within our reach, if we choose, because it is always within us. I finally and completely open my heart and allow and accept that my life and all of our lives can be easy, peacefully, and wholly joyous every minute of every day, starting with this brilliant, sparkling second. And so it is.
And have a wonderful, wonderful week. And so it is. See you next time.